Hello everybody, and this is going to be our first video in our little central North Carolina homesteading experience. About a year ago, my wife and I bought this property out in the country. We currently live in a gated community and have been there for, I don't know, several years, and we're just really not happy with that kind of lifestyle anymore. So after doing some internet searching and some YouTube watching, we decided to go ahead and put some of our finances into purchasing and owning free and clear, debt-free, a piece of property. We originally had our eyes set on 10 acres, but this 4.5, almost 5 acre tract came available and was extremely affordable, was well within our budget, and rather than go into debt or to stretch ourselves out, we bought this 5 acre piece of property that I'm coming up on my left here. So as you can see, it starts right here in this corner. I'm gonna kind of hold the camera up and you can see the tree line where it basically boxes the property out. It's 200 feet wide by maybe 1,500 feet deep or so. I haven't really looked at the numbers, and runs all the way down to where the tree line ends in the back. So we have quite a bit of space. I'm gonna go up here and park. I'm gonna pause the video for a second and I'll be right back with you. So here I am parked in this corner of our property where I've actually went ahead and set down some stuff. My old four-wheeling toy there that has seen a lot of neglect. She ain't been out on the trail in a while, but I have used it on this property already, dragging some logs and driving down in there to the creek and stuff like that. And there's an old tractor that I picked up pretty reasonably. Like I said, we've owned this property for a year, and when I first got here, I took this little old Ford 8N, and this scrape blade was what came with it from the guy that sold it to me. And she smokes like the devil, but I went ahead and used that and scraped out the road a little bit coming in to our property, which didn't have any gravel, and it was a ravine is the best word I can use to describe it. The water had shed. Instead of going off and down to the ditch, it was shedding right down the right side of the property here, or if I'm standing this way, it was shedding right where you see this different color clay, and it had cut a deep hole about as wide as this lane where you can see the tire tracks and straight down. In fact, it was so bad that right after we purchased property, somebody came down through here probably at night and didn't know this was here, and had run a small car off in it because there was a piece of the front end of the small car that they left in the hole. So I scraped this out with that scrape blade, and we pitched in with some of the neighbors. There's only 3 other people that live on this road, and they all have stretches of property similar to us, and we all pitched in and bought a load of gravel and brought it in. So that was the very first improvement that we were able to do to this property. Then another neighbor who has a little miniature excavator came through and used his bucket and scooped out enough dirt to kind of create a ditch through here. So the water has a real definite place to go, and it doesn't wash our gravel right back out again. And this road has held up very well for the year that it's been out here. When we first got out here, the woods were right up to the road almost, and slowly over that first spring and summer, through the summer, even into the hot part, there were some days I could only get an hour or so out here because of the heat index. But between me and my family, we got out here and we kind of cleared this little first part of this meadow, or whatever you want to call it, out, just to kind of start getting our hands dirty, cutting trees and piling stuff up. You can see there was a big burn pile here at one time, where just stuff getting piled up and burned. And the land itself has quite a few battle scars. It went through a clear-cut logging experience. I don't know what year that happened, but you can see a defined tree line that runs down either side, which actually kind of helps us visualize so we know where our property ends. Also, at one point in time in this land's history, it had cattle on it. There's still the remnants running down each property line, and across the back there are remnants of a barbed wire fence that kept cattle in here, and that also helps us understand where our property is. We got to get it officially surveyed, and I want to get some stakes put down, so we can maybe plant some kind of something that'll give us a clear barrier on into the future, so we don't lose track of where our land ends and somebody else's land begins. You can see here, there's still some little tree stumps where I didn't have any way of getting them up out of the ground. I just used the chainsaw and got it right down to the ground and cut these little pine trees down. But it kind of give you an idea of how close to the roadway these trees were growing, and then out from those trees was the brush. But the grass has come back really nicely. I just came out here and knocked this down a little bit yesterday. So let's just start on this part right here. You can see what I did is, as I was able to selectively cut and clear this little section out, I was able to keep some of these saplings who really shot up quickly. I believe this is some type of oak tree. Now that they've got some light, this stuff has actually thrived. Well, some of it has. I'll show you something that hadn't done very well, and I don't understand why. This is some type of, I believe somebody told me this was like a wild cherry type tree. Now, if you're watching this and you're familiar with the central region of North Carolina, and you know what these indigenous trees are, and I'm calling it wrong, please let me know in the comments or whatever. I believe somebody told me this was a thorn apple. Last year it did get these little green something on it, like little green, look more like berries than like an apple, a pear or anything. But it's got this tree has these huge thorns that will really get you. The first time I mowed around underneath this tree, I found out the hard way, right in the top of my head. But that thing's really shot up. This is where it starts, the jungle starts taking this little corner back up, because well, actually I'll go ahead and point out our well-defined deer path that runs right down through there. I'll walk around and show you more of that in a second. But we got some poplars. This little poplar right here came straight up from a seedling, and you can see there's a vine that's already trying to choke it out of some sort, so I had to get out here and cut that. We got a lot of honeysuckle. You can see it's that time of year. The honeysuckle is climbing up everything. But my little girl, my smallest, I taught her the other day how to take one of these honeysuckles and you pull the end off of it, and you can pull that sweet tasting nectar right out of it. And that's something we used to do as a kid. I grew up in coastal North Carolina, so the environment isn't too different than it is here. There are some subtle differences, but anyways, I was very familiar with honeysuckles. You can see here's one of those little small, I reckon that's some type of oak. Through here you can see another one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get online and really look at these leaf patterns and try to figure out what some of these small ones are. But my goal wasn't to just cut everything down to the ground. My goal was to kind of create, you can see back here, this grass and then these trees. And I want that whole section to look like that, where it's well cut underneath it, and these trees are allowed to grow like a grove. And then I can pick and choose which ones that I want to keep and which ones I want to cut down. And also in this open spot, maybe lining the front edge of the road here, is to have some type of food trees. Like I said, our eventual goal for this is to be as sustainable, self-sustainable as possible, and having a food grove of some sort would really just fit the bill, I think. I don't know what kind of tree this is, but all this stuff was so densely packed and so choked that now that I've opened it up and let it get some air, there's a little poplar that popped up out of a seedling since the beginning of the spring. So it's really taken off right there. Don't know how much light it's going to be able to get and how viable it's going to be, but if this is one of those wild cherries, which I think it is, it might have to come down if that poplar really takes off. I think I enjoy those poplars more than I enjoy these, because I got a ton of these and not as many poplar. So you can kind of come down, we can see one of the huge adversaries here. You can see where we've got deep cutting into this underbrush is all of the wall of thorns. Never in my life have I ever been so eaten alive by this stuff. These things, I mean, that you can see where we cut and it just lays down and dries out. Blackberries and something called the devil's walking stick. I'll walk up to the front and show you some of our blackberry bushes, but you can just see where we just hacked and beat and cut at this stuff, just trying to push through that wall, because just on the other side of all this briars, it starts where the ground is shaded and everything, it starts to open back up again. And looks like one of my neighbors is coming out right now. Here is an example of this devil's walking stick right down in here. This thing, you can see these briars or thorns that come off of it and how thick that stalk is, and it goes straight up into the air. And then you've got so mixed in this, you can see some of the stalks from this devil's walking stick, and then you can see those little thin pattern briars with the more hook spurs on them. This got like a straight spur on it. That's the ones that really just dig into you, and those are part of those wild blackberry bushes that grew up in here. I had a briar hook to me just as I was walking out. Something else we have a lot on our property here is where this was timbered and logged. I've mulched a ton of this stuff, and every time I hit it with something mowing out here, it mulches a little more and a little more. But you can see where these we had huge logs that were left to just rot, and my boy would get out here with me and with an axe, and actually even a pickaxe, and we'd just chop these things up as much as possible and then try to mulch them into the ground. So we have these patches of just mulch, and the ground will eventually take it over, and while the wild vegetation will start covering it up. But for now, it creates like these bald patches of ground where it's just like a mulch laydown. Here's an example of some logs and stuff we haven't even got to yet. This is a very new patch. I don't know if I'm going to use the word excavate. That might fit, but we'll excavate this log, get it drug up there by either the tractor or the Jeep, and get this stuff out of here. Something else, if you heard me smack myself there, here we go. Let's see if we can zoom in this little biting fly. It got me right on the forehead while I was taking this video. So got me right on the forehead, some kind of biting fly, and that's not even a yellow fly. I don't know what that is, but he was getting me. So I got a spot right here on my arm where something bit me pretty bad. I put some cream on it this morning. It bit me yesterday, and it's swole up and red and itchy. So that's some of the stuff we're dealing with out here. but it's part of it. So we'll get this out, and so this is more of what we're used to as far as the process we've been taking here. So take this and then compare it to this. That's what we've been doing with this slowly over the year. Now, there's no way that we can make enough progress to get our home site started this year by the ability and the equipment that I have to do this by hand. This is just a labor of love, just so I can get this nice little selective tree grove here, keeping what I want to keep and cutting down when I don't. So let's walk down here. I'm going to show you the road we had put in or cut in, and the home site that we actually had somebody come out with an excavator and do. So you can see the tracks have laid a path down here, but standing from here looking down that way, you can't see the corner of it because of the way the little road bends, but it goes right down the edge of the property all the way down to our second. We have two water features. We have a spring, which is the first thing we'll come across, and then we have further down, we have a large creek. People around here call it a river. I don't know why. To me, it's just a glorified creek, but maybe, I think somebody told me it was classified as a water, like a river, and it does feed a large lake, a large local lake. It's one of the main things that goes out to this large lake, feeds into the water pattern out here. So anyway, here we go. We are at the upper corner of our property that we've had excavated and cleared. The gentleman that did it did a great job. Didn't charge his arm and a leg, and he kept trees because we told him we didn't want it down to the ground. We wanted to have enough to be able to put a home site, which is probably going to be right in here around where you see that first big pile there, and this little tree that's got that water survey flag to it. We had this land surveyed with a soil scientist, and he picked out several perk sites where we could put a well system, and put a septic system. And that was the first thing we did. It was part of our deal with the guy that was selling the land. We wanted the land. We were willing to pay cash for it, but it had to perk first, was our only thing. And so we paid, before we even owned it, we paid a soil scientist to come out here and do a survey of the land. And he found enough sites to say, yeah, you can build a house out here. It'll perk. So this is it, guys. We cleared out. We told him we wanted about an acre. I haven't measured it all out, but I trust the guy. And like I said, he's a real good guy that did this. And he said he'd go down, his words were, I'll go down to that crooked tree down there and clear this thing out. And I'll leave you some trees if I run across anything good. That ain't just straight underbrush. I'll leave it standing. So we've got a lot of holly down in here that he's left. He also left where the soil scientists did their surveys. He used this little tree. This is a sweet gum tree, and I don't want that thing at all. It'll come down once we figure out where we're going to build, but he used this gum tree to mark with that little red or orange and black ribbon. He marked one of the well sites. But we got some right on the edge here. We got a good sized holly tree. And as I'm out here, you'll bound to see all the birds. They hear me talking and stomping around, and they ain't gonna be out. Like if you just sit down out here and get real still, the birds start coming out, and it's absolutely wonderful. There's a holly tree, another pile. So we had all the brush piled up in several smaller piles that when we set one on at a time on fire, we can come out here maybe as a family and camp overnight and start that morning, wait until a day after it rains when the ground is good and wet, and set one of these guys on fire at a time and get these out of here. So that's kind of how he managed it for us. So you can see he pulled up a lot of these little guys just straight up by the roots. So they won't be those little stumps like what I had to do with the chainsaw. He just grabbed it with a thumb on that thing and pulled it right out of the ground. Something he couldn't do, like I was saying, those battle scars, I'm about to show you some of the old wounds to this property, is whatever type of tree this was that came down during the logging that they did whatever years, however many years ago. That's one of the relics of that. And he couldn't get this out of the ground, not with the equipment he brought down. He said once we had our soil completely done and got all of our permits and everything, he'd come out with a big piece of equipment and get those big stumps out of the ground. He said there was something about the process of moving those stumps creates a big hole and moves a lot of dirt around, and it could actually mess up our permitting process for our septic, disturb too much soil or something. I don't know all the details about that. I'm just going on what he said. And we absolutely, that would be completely devastating to our thing is if something like that happened and they come out and said, well, you can't use your site, you've disturbed too much soil. Which, like I said, I don't understand that at all, but it is what it is. So we'll get all those big stumps out of there once we move forward with this process of the house. I'm stepping down into the valley here, and here's something I just noticed on the ground. Something we've got a lot of. My boy came out and hunted this during the fall, and he let several smaller bucks walk. He never saw that big one. We had a couple big ones on the trail cameras, but there's a deer print right there where they're walking in and checking all this new stuff out. That's brand new. It's a new print. They probably laid up in here and bedded, and now they don't know what in the world's happened. My wife said she felt bad. She said, well, we've messed up the birds and we messed up the deer, but the deer use this dry, there's actually a rainwater creek bed that runs down through this little low part in our property. And before we had this cleared like this, we walked in here and trekked our way from corner to corner, front to back. And most of our trail walking was done on deer paths. And they follow the dry creek bed there. So here you go, looking back up towards the road that way. Looking back from the back edge here, like I said, about 200 feet from line to line. So it's a long, narrow piece of property. And here's what's left of that old cattle fence on this side. And you can see the old woods, old forest back off that way with these nice big mature trees. What this property used to look like before they timbered it. And like I said, that might have been, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, maybe less. I don't know how quick it would take for it to grow up this thick. I don't think long, because shoot, from one summer to the next, the amount of stuff that grew back or tried to grow back if I wasn't knocking it down. Some of these old stumps right here, and holly tree. He kept this line of trees that grew up with this dry creek bed, and that really made us happy. My wife wants me to tell him how much we appreciate that, to keep this nature feature right along the back edge here, and to keep these nice holly trees. And there's some poplar, but there's something I noticed about poplar, and I'm learning as I go, because my wife and I have never owned this much land. I grew up on about a 3-acre plot down near the coast, and it was a little bit different. The wooded part of it had different trees and different things going on, different soil, and it's just straight flat. The property I grew up on is like just flat. A lot of that land down there is flat down there the coast. So this has got some character to it with these hills and valleys. Piedmont, I don't know if that's the word that's used for it, is Piedmont property. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying about poplar, these trees, these big poplar trees that they cut when they lumbered or timbered, these poplar just come right out these stumps. And you can see this old dead tree right here hanging on to life. And nature just has a way of doing that. You know, you would have thought it'd have killed it, just cutting it down like that. And this old rotten, war-torn piece of wood there, and then the life, whatever they left on the side of it there, just enough, it bound itself back together and went straight back up and is trying to live again. Now, I have been told that these little poplar groves that come out of these old stumps, these trees, they won't make it. They'll grow up and about like they are now, about this size, and might get a little bit of thickness to them. But since they come off of these old stumps, that they when a good wind comes, now that we've opened this up, when a good wind comes, they're not rooted good enough and they're not strong enough to take it. So rather than cutting them down just because that's what I'm being told, I'm gonna give them a chance. I'm not gonna cut nothing down unless it's threatening the house in any kind of way. These aren't nearly big enough to threaten where our house is going to be, or if it threatens some kind of coop or something we put up for our animals when we have animals out here. Anything that he left standing down here near this old creek bed, I'm gonna let the wind blow it down. If something happens, I'm gonna give it a chance and let nature. If nature comes in and blows one of these trees down, then I'll cut it up and do something with it. But I'm gonna give them a chance and see how life does. So let's walk up out of the bottom of this creek bed up towards the back edge here. See, now here's one of the same poplar trees that's come up out of a seed, and it's still standing. So he left it there, and that'd be the one I would think would grow and spend its life the way that it should have, not trying to fight life out of an old stump. So here's another pile of this stuff he got off the back edge, and he connected through the old creek bed here and gave us a good path to get across. So we have like this little natural area behind the creek bed, and then ahead of it where the house is going to go up on that hill with our basement and everything. Back porch looking down in this dry creek bed. Oh, I walked right past it. Here's another example of something I told him I wanted to save. Is these little old, I don't know if this is cedar or spruce, these evergreens. I told him if you see some evergreens down in there, please don't cut them down if you can help it. If you see them, we would love to have some evergreens on this property. Some of the trees that were here, cedar trees and stuff, these old bits, if you can find the right old bit of wood laying on the ground and break it open, it smells just like a cedar chest. While I'm walking, I'll see if I can't find a piece. But a bunch of that was here at one point in time, and now it's all gone, with just little ones popping up here and there. There's another one of these poplar, and like I said, it's got some good size to it, but it never will be the tree that tree that it come off of was. These are basically just big glorified limbs, and you can see the base of this where they're just fighting their way out of what life was left in it and trying to go up. So something else I'm looking for is snakes. He ran over the guy out here working ran over a big copperhead, and he showed me, he laid it up on the hill up there somewhere. I don't know if I'll see it doing this video or not. Animals might have got to it and it might be gone by now, but it was a very large copperhead that got under the tracks of his machine while he was out here doing what he does. Now, we're going to leave as much wildlife alone as we can when we get out here, but I can't be having something, bite my young'uns and stuff. So that'll have to be a bridge we'll cross when we get to it. I don't kill something just to kill something. Never have. Grew up hunting. My dad taught me when I was young how to shoot, and I did the same for my kids. And you know, I've just never been the kind of person that would just kill something just to kill it if God put it out here. But like I said, you know, if there's snakes getting in our stuff, and you know, out where one of the youngest is going to be playing, I'll have to figure that out, and we'll have to do what we got to do. So here's just some trees. This tree right here has come up from the ground and not out of one of those stumps. This looks like it's a good strong tree. More hollies. Now I'm getting down to the back edge of our property here, along the back side. Oop, I just flushed the bird. Like I said, they're... Alright guys, sorry about that. My camera glitched out on me. So we're back to filming now. I don't know what it was doing. But kind of continuing on with my thought process earlier about harvesting wildlife and harvesting animals. You know, both of us grew up, my father-in-law is a big-time hunter, and he's not wasteful with the animals. I didn't grow up to be wasteful with the animals. I grew up with the idea of managing meat animals. Like I said, we had chickens and rabbits, and that's kind of where we want to be with this. If something loses its life to sustain our life, that's its purpose, and we're just being real respectful of that, and just try to have the idea of not wasting anything. So that's my thought process on that. We'll walk across the creek here, and right along the back edge of where he's cleared, he's got another little path right here, and you can kind of get a good view of that dry creek bed. Now somewhere along this dry creek bed, it ain't dry no more. We haven't quite found where the spring head is, but somewhere along in that path there's a spring that pops up out of the ground, because there's good, cool, constant flowing water that will cross back down here. And I've been out here at all times of the year, last year after we owned it, and there's always been water in it. Now it ain't a rushing river or nothing, it's just a itty bitty trickling creek, but it is water, and it is constant. It's good, clear, and cold to the touch. So where it pops up down in that thicket, where the spring head is I don't know, but we'll have to find it once we get out here. Looking back across, got some other hollies right there, and there's another one of those poplar stump groves just on the other side of that pile. This spot right here, this hill, looks like to me it'd be a good spot once we get out here to have some kind of grazing animal, maybe some goats or something, I'm not really sure. And then as time goes by, along the back here, down in there, we want to have a pond where we're going to find a spot where the ground stays wet all the time, and dig us a pond. Hopefully it feeds itself and stays full of water, and we're really going to have to do a lot of research and make sure we do that right, and then break this off maybe into a larger grazing area for something, maybe even a little Jersey cow or something. My youngest has been taking horse riding lessons, and she's pretty heart set on having a horse, and I don't know, we'll just have to see. We'll have to see if that's in the plan or not. And here's one more of those marked off surveying trees. The guy come out and dug these holes. It's all growed up. I don't know if you can see down in there. But there's a hole in the ground where he dug it and poured water down in there to see how quick it absorbs, and did his thing. Took a plug and looked at the soil. He kind of showed us what he was doing, but I couldn't 100% follow what he was saying. But anyways, that's his craft, and that's what he does. So there's another one of these evergreens. There's one here, and it's a fitting mark to the corner here where he stopped clearing, and that laid down crooked tree. When we first walked out here, he said he'd cut to that crooked tree. So there's a tree right here that kind of lays over, and you can see it from the path. The top of it's broke out. Try not to make you sick. We'll start right here and come back slowly from the bottom edge. And there's our acre, and then our little road coming in so we can put a driveway down. I'm gonna try to maintain this path. The first year we owned it, we had the same guy come out here and cut the path, this path all the way down. He did what he did on that square acre there. He did the same thing here. He went down and pulled all the stuff up. Some stuff got laid off to the side. Some stuff got piled up in a pile that's already been burnt. I just came through here and knocked the weeds down, and it's nice because I can get through it. It's not like that right there. I mean, that's just straight thicket. So I can just come through here and knock these weeds down, and we got a nice trail we can walk all the way down into our property. And just imagine to ourselves what we're going to be able to do with all this as we develop it. We got, you know, our 1 year plan right now. 1 year out from now, we want to be out here living. Our 5 year plan, we want to have ourselves, you know, baby steps into the world of homesteading, and get established with stuff that's easy to learn and easy to, you know, immediately reap the reward of your labor, and then ease ourselves up into 10 years being settled in and have the majority of how we want this to be laid out, and graduate into maybe some stuff that's a little harder or takes a little more time and dedication. And then our 20-year plan is to be retired, and this to be something that our children and our grandchildren can come out and enjoy. I ain't gonna tell you my age or nothing, but we do have a grand youngin' on the way, and she ain't even here yet, but when she gets here, this will be, while she's growing, we'll be growing in this. And then by the time we retire, hopefully she spent some good summers out here and enjoyed this, you know, with us. And then when we pass on, our youngins have something to say that we worked hard for. So, and other grand youngins, you know, however many the Lord blesses us with. So that's our goal. Now you can see that this creek here, this is that spring-fed water. This is that spring-fed creek in here, and I don't think that's the head of it, because if you follow that back, I'm not going to try to fight this phone back through that thicket. There's an open spot right there. It's always full of frogs. I've already chased them off one jump when I was walking down and talking. But there's a hole in the ground right that's on the other side of this dead tree, and it pools there, but there's more water that runs in that's coming in from up that way. So there's water coming out of the ground somewhere, because it's constantly trickling and running. But if you go a little further up, it's dry unless it rains. So where that spring head is in there, we just ain't quite figured it out yet. But go around this tree. Now this is the little grove area here that my son hunted so diligently last year, and you know, him being the way he is, and I'm proud of him. He learned well. He didn't kill none of the deer off of it that weren't worth harvesting this year. Just let them go until they're worth harvesting, and they can put a good amount of meat in the freezer, and you don't have to kill but one or two, and you got a freezer full that'll last a while. So he let them walk. He didn't kill them just to kill them. And You know, he's a grown man, he's an adult. I didn't have to guide him or be out here with him or nothing. He just come out here and set up his little tree blind right in here, and we set up some trail cams, and he sat out here and watched the deer more than he hunted anything. So here's that creek. Now a big rain came through. There's some logs you can see laying across it here. Those, oh, I just jumped a frog right there. I can see some tadpoles in there, some big old tadpoles. But this log that's laying through here, there's a couple of them. The gentleman that cleared this little path through here for us had these logs across this hole right here, and then a big rain must have come through and pushed them down further down in there. But we'll create some kind of little bridge over these kind of things as time comes by or goes by. I mowed a little bit of this out to maintain that spot for my boy to come out here and have his shooting lanes when he puts his ground blind out. We ain't put any tree stands up yet, but like I said, on the trail cameras we've had raccoons and all kinds of stuff, all kinds of wildlife. The neighbors tell me there's some coyotes down in here. Have to watch out for them. And turkey, they say they've seen quite a bit of turkey, and of course deer. But when he'd put his corn out, one time he put corn out here, and it's like the deer were laying in there watching, because as soon as he walked out of here, within half an hour or so, the deer started sticking their nose out of the thicket and then walked over here and started eating. So they were watching him. They knew he was in here. And then they knew what he was bringing. He was bringing them big bags of sweet corn down in here. So that apple flavored corn is what he would buy, I think. But anyway, let's keep moving. Oh, something else. So I was mowing and I just now realized I saved some of this stuff. These are pitcher plants. I believe it's pitcher plants. Growing up on the coast, we had pitcher plants and we had Venus flytraps that grew naturally out in the woods. And like I said, I believe that is a pitcher plant. Now, if I'm wrong, please somebody tell me. Now, when I was a kid, if I pull one up, you're not supposed to, but if I pull one up and you cut that open down the side, down in the bottom of those pitcher plants would be bugs, dead bugs, where they're lured in there, and then they got a little bit of liquid down in there and they digest their food. So when I saw those and I was mowing, I left them alone. I didn't cut those pitcher plants. I just kind of mowed around them as best I could. All right. Now, walking down through this path here, when I get to the bottom right here where you see I didn't mow no more, this gets real mushy and sloppy through there. It's got that oil sheen to it. So this type of environment I'm very used to this. Down on the coast, there was when I was growing up as a youngin', there was a lay down across the street from our house that I used to spend many days and summers out in, and most of that low coastal property out there was like this, and me and my dog would go out there and just spend the day in the woods, and a lot of it was like this. And that's why I said I got used to snakes. I got used to seeing them pitcher plants. They were bigger though. The ones I remember seeing down in the swamp was bigger than those. That's why I hope they're pitcher plants. It's been so long, I'm just going on memory, but I remember them just being big when I was a kid. And then Venus flytraps I always thought was neat. I've heard that people go in there with backpacks and pull them and sell them, which I'm sure is illegal, but people used to do it. But like we moved when my wife and I, we've been together since we were teenagers and been married just about as long as we've been together. We got married real young, and we moved away from the coast and started our life kind of made her way into central North Carolina. Been here ever since. So just going on memory of what it was like growing up down there and going off into the woods. So I'm personally trying to get back to nature like that and kind of get busy in middle life and young ones. And we got 2 that are out of the house, grown and out of high school and off to the races themselves. So hopefully this is a place they can slow down and come out and enjoy with us, because we're at that place where we just won't slow down. But then again, it's kind of a oxymoron or contradiction, is the fact that this is going to be a lot of work, but it's different work. At least that's how I'm looking at it. Get out of the rat race and into the homesteading. So I don't have any preconceived notions that this is going to be easy. But they say when you do what you like, you never work a day in your life. So we're going into it with that attitude. Lots of prayer. And trying to rely on all those people that it seems like there's a big call for this. Well, at least that's the impression I get when you look online and you watch all these videos that I'm getting to contribute to the community. Have our own little series of videos we put out there. Learning from others. But there's a lot of people ahead of us. And if you think about it, I remember, I don't know where they got off to in the years. My daddy died when I was young. And I just remember he was all about this kind of stuff, but I didn't pay much attention, just like any other teenager. Kind of wanted to do my own thing, and it didn't have nothing to do with growing and harvesting and all that stuff. But he had these books called Foxfire books, and I'm going to go back and try to find them, because they talked about old folks. And the old folks this was their way of life, and that's what they knew, and they were good at it, and it got passed down. So we're definitely starting all over, and we'll see what happens. There was my rambling for a little bit just while I was walking, so you wouldn't get bored. I've been finding these stones on our property. I'm hoping that whenever we get in here, now that we're at the back edge, I'm gonna stop for a second and show you this creek. But when we get in here and start disking stuff up and moving stuff around, if we find enough of those stone, we really would like to have some kind of little stone wall or something that was made out of stone from our property. There's quartz in here and sandstone and all kinds of different stuff. Now I'm at the back edge. Let me see if I can get where I can kind of see back up. Hold the camera up. But we're looking back to the road that way, and this is kind of like the back corner. It had to angle in a little bit along the edge of the creek, because we're right on the bank of the creek. And when they were logging, they couldn't get within so many feet. I think it's 10 feet, or no, it's more than 10 feet, I believe. 20 feet, I don't know the rules. But somebody told me when they were logging, they had to stop within so many feet of the water. Even though our property, according to the GIS and when we looked at everything to buy and everything and sign everything, the contracts, the property, and the previous owner said the property goes all the way down to the creek, and some places actually in the creek. I don't know if that's true. We're gonna have to have it surveyed, but I'm gonna walk over in, and you can see that cattle fence, barbed wire. It's growing into the trees there to keep the cows out of the creek and from getting across the creek. But we'll walk up on this bank here, and there's a creek. Now we came down right after a hurricane, after we owned it, and good gracious, this thing was a raging torrent. And this is about what it stays like all year otherwise. Just peaceful. Real shallow, the sandbar right there. But then it gets off into some deep spots as you're walking along. We've walked it one direction or the other. I try to respect other people's property, even though they ain't a soul out here. You know, we try not to get off into too many other people's property, but I don't reckon they'd get too mad if we walked a little ways up the creek one direction or the other. I mean, we've got 200 feet of this, so you know it's not hard to walk off of that a little bit on accident. But when it had that big hurricane storm, this thing was plumb full of water all the way up to that where I got that path cut. But the grade and the fall on this property is so much that it'd have to be pretty biblical to get anywhere up into deep into our property. It's pretty relegated to this, and you can tell by the ground that this gets wet sometimes. It's hard under my feet right now. It's not like that sloppy patch up there, but the water will hit this under extreme circumstances. But this really natural retreat area it calls to us. We walk down this path and just spend a lot of time as a couple just standing down here and talking about the future, talking about what could be. Now we're just about the end of our journey here, and I appreciate you guys sticking with me. Oh, I just about forgot. We'll hang on just long enough. I was going to show you the trees that for some reason died on me after I cleared everything out. They looked so pretty and lush, and then they died. We'll walk back up and talk about that. I might even pause the video as I walk up. I don't know yet. Well, I might just keep walking and talking if you don't mind hearing my voice. But anyways, there's blackberry bushes and those dead trees up there that I was going to talk about, and then we'll call it a day. This will be the end of the video. I'm a little out of shape. You can hear me catching my breath, but this is the end of the path here. Gets another one of these sloppy holes right here, but you can see some deer tracks, and those are pretty fresh. Mud's still kicked up good. Let's see if I can hop across it on this stone right here. Yep, and like I said, there's some pretty big stones under the ground. It's a nice little stone to hop over to. Trying to get across that. See if I can. This is the back corner. Hold my camera up high and see if you can see back up that way. How far we are down in here. And he went along the back edge, down one side and along the back edge to give us some space to be able to walk our property down. Let's see if I can. Yep, there's that cattle fence. We'll walk down to this spot right here now. This bend in this creek. Here's more of that barbed wire. There's a bend in this creek, and it's chock full of trees and stuff. And there's a little old bird looking at me. Let me see if I can zoom in on him. Look at him. I ain't chased him off. Running across that log right there. There he is. He's come right out and open for me. Yep. Yep. Just sitting there looking at me, singing. He ain't scared of me. I know he sees me and hears me. Oh, he's just going on about his day. Just living life. But yeah, this is slam full of old dead logs and trees where they pile up in this bend right here, and the water just runs through them and let nature breaks them down. Well, anyway, I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video here. I'm gonna walk back up to the top, and then I'm gonna show you those blackberry bushes and that those trees, those that I can't quite figure out what happened to them, and then maybe somebody out there watching knows. Let me know. All right, bear with me. All right, guys, we are back up to the top, and so we've got blackberries that grow all over the place in here. There's a blackberry bush. You can see the white flowers popping up on it. They're good and bad. They're bad when if I'm trying to clear that spot out, I might just have to circle that out and leave that as one of our bushes we harvest. Some of those other areas we had to fight through them like a wall, like I was talking earlier. And then we do have some up towards the top of the road, and they grow all along. There's one trying to grow in my trailer hitch right here. Well, there was. Did I cut it down? I must have cut it down. But there was one that was right around here. I must have mowed it. Might have been on the side. I thought it was growing up out of the trailer hitch. Nope, it's growing up out of the tractor here. There's one of them blackberry bushes just sprung up where I parked the tractor over it. So it don't take long, and they come right on up. But anyway, back up towards the top of the road here, we have a big blackberry bush that we harvested from last year, and then all down that little row on both sides of the road, in some places the road coming in here, there's blackberry bushes, and I ain't gonna walk all the way down through there. I ain't gonna submit you to that, but down around the tree line there, all in the tree line, and especially around the hook, all kinds of blackberry bushes we harvested. And we had blackberry, I think it was a cobbler that was made for us. Now my neighbor, he owns 25 acres. One of our neighbors owns 25 acres of this and has that big, beautiful house out there. Then the other people, they sit on about 5 acres just like us, but he's a really good guy. He's the one that came out. He owns a little excavator and did that ditch along the back edge of his property for us. But he owns 25 of it, and this road is an easement on his back edge of his property. So I think we got good neighbors out here. Well, anyway, let me show you this one last thing, and this is the end of the video. When I first come out here and started clearing, I started unearthing out of the jungle these really pretty trees, and they had some pretty flowers and like these pink hanging deals on them. And I said, what in the world is that? I've never seen that before. And then I got to looking, and I started looking at different leaf patterns, and this turned out to be a type of sumac, an Oriental Sumac. And these things were absolutely gorgeous. They were thick and green, and they had their little berry clusters hanging off of them, and they were just pretty. This one came back. You can see it's starting to flush itself out. Now, when I thought of sumac, I thought of poison sumac. Now, I've run into a vine called cow itch out here that I'm not allergic to, but some people are highly allergic to. That's supposed to be like poison ivy. I've run into ivy and oak out here. And so when I looked up sumac, I said, oh man, I've done been rubbing all in this stuff. I'm gonna be hurting. But it's not that type of sumac. And I was excited about having it. But as you can see, this tree died. And I don't understand why. And I thought at first maybe it's because of the fire. We burned a fire there. Maybe the fire burned it up. And then I thought maybe it's because I skinned it up against it with something mowing. But then again, if you look on this one that's alive, I skinned that one too. And it's filled itself back in and rolled back over and healed itself. And it's just fine. And it's blooming back out again. Then I walked down over here where some of our other sumac trees are. I'm trying to make this quick, and this video is up. You can see that this is just, I mean, it's dead. There's no green, there's no life there. Deader than a doornail, just like that other one. This one beside it has started budding out again. There's what's left of some of those berries. The sun and the sky probably won't let you see. You see the shape of it. And that one's starting to bloom back out again. Here's another set of those berries. See if I can focus in on them. They look like a pink, get a pink look to them when they were out on it. And then again, here's another one. Deader than a doornail. It's got a ivy. I believe this is Virginia creeper. That's going up it. So guys, I don't know. I don't know what. And then over in there was a big one. I ain't gonna walk over there, but right down in there is a big one, and deader than a doornail. So I don't know. I guess a doornail, if that's a dead thing. So if you're deader than a doornail, that's a really dead thing. So anyway, this has been our first video. It's been really, really long, and I've just been rambling on and talking. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for watching.